Stalk your prey on the quest for stolen goods with your blackjack, sword, and an assortment of unique arrows. Steal for money and uncover the hidden agendas of your allies and enemies as you play through an unraveling story of deception and revenge. Welcome to episode 21 of the 5 T's of Stealth, where we will be discussing Thief Gold. Once again, the 5 T's include tasks, terrain, tools, threats, and tension. These are what I consider to be the fundamentals of stealth gaming. Thief Gold includes Thief, the Dark Project, 12 huge missions with multiple environments, and the Gold Update, 3 new campaign missions which deepen the plot and add 5 new types of enemies. So, all in all, according to the Steam page, Thief has a total of 15 missions. I say according to the Steam page because unfortunately, I have dropped Thief Gold after getting soft locked on the 7th mission. More on that later. I should also mention there is a training level if you so choose to play it. Most of the missions in Thief will follow the same pattern: infiltrate a location and steal a valuable item. Later on, you will also be required to steal a certain amount of additional loot. I played the game on normal difficulty, but it is my understanding that the harder difficulties add additional objectives and require a higher quantity of loot. Throughout each mission, there are usually smaller objectives you need to complete in order to guide you to your main objective. For example, in Mission 5, the Thieves Guild, you must sneak through the sewers and retrieve a key from Ruben's mansion before retracing your steps into the sewers and then proceeding to unlock the safe containing the valuable item at Donald's mansion. Another example would be in Mission 2, which requires you to break into a prison to free a certain captive, and in order to free him, you must first find out which cell he is located in. One more example for fun. In Mission 4, after assassins eliminate another person thinking it was you, you proceed to tail them and find out who ordered the hit on your head. Typically, I would now want to transition to talking about the story present within Thief Gold. However, I have very little to say. That may sound like an insult. Please allow me to clarify. From what I can tell from a few YouTube videos, each mission has a briefing cutscene at the start. I never once saw one of these briefings. Every time I began a mission, I would see the objectives in a list, and that's all I got. I noticed a replay briefing button or something like that, but clicking it never worked. I had the same issue on the main menu when trying to click on the intro or the credits. In other words, none of the story was working for me. My cutscenes were simply bugged. I'm not going to sit here and talk about the story when none of it was presented to me. I'm not going to go watch a story recap on YouTube and then reword it into my own review because that feels like just a waste. So unfortunately, I've got nothing. If I were to go off of what I was given, I would have said there was no story because a lot of the missions felt disconnected and the pacing was choppy, with each new mission just instantly starting after the previous one. Hell, I didn't even know there were cutscenes until I got stuck on like the 3rd or 4th mission and went looking for help and saw one, and it blew my mind. Again, this does not appear to be the way the game was intended to be, but sadly, it's the risk you take with a game from 1998. I will say, however, Garrett seems pretty cool, and the NPC dialogue that you overhear within each mission is very solid and quite fun to just stop and listen to. When it comes to level design within Thief Gold, it's simultaneously some of the best and some of the worst I've seen thus far throughout the 5 Ts. On one hand, there is some ridiculously amazing variety present throughout the game. You start by sneaking through a mansion, then the mines, a prison, a temple, and even some ruins. The variety itself is very unique, but when discussing the contents of each level, I'd say the quality starts to drop off. Some of these maps are absurdly large and difficult to navigate with a lot of empty space. Every corridor begins to look the same, and believe me, you'll get lost constantly. Some missions are worse than others, and I was genuinely infuriated more than a few times. On the other hand, something that is always a big win and very appreciated is the creativity the maps allow the player. In Thief Gold, there appear to be several ways to proceed through every mission, and that is something I will simply always praise. Garrett is a rather well-equipped man. His arsenal is mainly comprised of a sword, a blackjack, and a bow. The sword and bow are exactly what you would expect, while the blackjack provides a non-lethal silent knockout option. Whether or not you go loud, you can move the body after the damage is done. What makes the bow a little more unique is the variety of your arrows. Of course, you've still got your standard arrow, but listen to this list. Moss arrows create a silent walkway. Water arrows can put out fires, or when used with holy water, eliminate the undead. Fire arrows will, cause fires and light stuff up, while rope arrows can be shot into a wooden surface and then drop a rope, giving you a new access point. And finally, noisemaker arrows, which of course, as the name implies, cause a distraction. There could be some others present later on, but these were all that I experienced. Aside from the main trio in his arsenal, Garrett has quite a few other options. There are flash bombs, which function like a flashbang and seem to work on the undead in some capacity. There are mines, health potions, speed potions, breath potions, and of course, lockpicks. I quite enjoyed the lockpicking system present in this game. You have two different lockpicks, a triangle and a square shape. You must alternate between the two to unlock a door or chest. Sometimes the lockpicking process only requires one and you don't have to switch a single time, while others, you could switch back and forth 5, 6 times before you get that thing open. It's quite enjoyable when they don't overcomplicate these things, but still make it engaging enough that you're not just clicking on a door and waiting. On some levels involving the undead, there are fountains of holy water, which will make your water arrows turn into holy water arrows for 30 seconds. There is also a holy water potion available, which provides the same effect. General movement feels pretty good once you get your controls all fixed up, because at the start they are horrendous. You have a jump and can even mantle onto ledges. You can control your speed in order to move more quietly, whether that's by crouching or by choosing to sneak. Noise is a big factor of this game, but we'll touch more on that in threads. Sticking to the shadows is also very important, and if you do so, you're basically invisible. There's some other basic stuff present, such as opening and closing doors, operating a lift, cutting down banners to reveal hidden compartments, and the ability to peek around corners. At the start of each mission, you will start at a briefing screen, which will show your beginning inventory on that level, but there is also a bit of a shop with additional items that can be purchased and used throughout that mission. One of my favorite things about Thief is the map system. That feels like a really weird thing to be excited about, but it's very true. When you view your map, it just feels unique. It's as if the map is a genuine drawing of the location, filled in with personalized notes and details that will potentially be important in the mission. There's even several pages worth on some missions, and even the less detailed maps still feel exciting to me. This is something that really added to my immersion, and I would happily experience it in the future with more games. If you start with the training level as I did, then the first threat you'll run into is the noise level of different floors. Carpet lets you move quietly, while stone and metal floors require slower movement to stay quiet. Although sometimes it felt like no matter what I did, I was too loud. This game is all about noise, and if you're too loud, the guards will come running. The basic enemies, or guards, present in this game are pretty solid. Their detection is good, and if they notice you, it's very hard to lose them. They stay locked on. They also appear to be pretty fast, and will absolutely react to dead or unconscious bodies. There will be basic enemies from different factions, but ultimately they seem to be no different from one another. More or less just a color palette swap. These guards also have access to alarms and will quickly set them off if need be. What really surprised me in this game was the presence of undead enemies. That's right, this game has zombies. From what I experienced, there were two types of zombies. You've got your basic zombie that is what you would expect, and then these other undead that walked around speaking in tongues or backwards or something and could use some degree of ranged attack magic. They were honestly kind of creepy. There are some other non-human enemies in this game that I came across. Firstly, these big bipedal gas-shooting lizards that I believe are called burricks or burricks. They seem much more threatening than they actually are. There were also some big-ass spiders, and finally this weird humanoid bug. It looked like a mix of a human and a mantis. Aside from the actual enemies, there were plenty of traps along the way that you needed to be wary of. The main one I saw was a portrait with an open mouth that fired some type of projectile, and these were scattered all over. The biggest threat of Thief, in my opinion, was figuring out how to clear each level. The enemies would be a big enough problem on their own, but it didn't help that you were practically lost and trying to piece together the necessary route from context clues such as NPC dialogue or lore text hidden throughout the map. Each mission seemed to have a little puzzle to solve, such as figuring out which prison cell your ally was in or lighting a statue with a fire arrow to open a hidden door. Thief is a weird case when it comes to tension because it's always fluctuating. You could argue that's true of every game, which is absolutely true, but here it really felt to the extreme. I struggled with Thief for sure, but it was usually temporary and because of the noise system. I'm all for having to move silently, but in this game it felt like too much. If I wasn't moving at a snail's pace, it felt like a guard would always be alerted that something was going on. This got old rather fast as I again, didn't enjoy the slow pace. More often than not, I would just get lost in the levels, and that can be very annoying. As I mentioned earlier, I was frustrated pretty regularly. Honestly, a lot of the time, Thief started to feel more like an adventure game than a stealth game, and that was not really appreciated. When it comes to the undead levels, I was really just not into it. Yes, I understand you can still sneak past zombies, but it quickly feels like what's the point? If you're caught by a human guard, it can feel like there's no point in trying to fight or escape and just accept the L and restart. But the exact opposite is true for the zombies. There's really no consequence to being caught. They'll chase after you, but they are extremely slow and lose track of you pretty quickly. Sure, some of the tougher enemies can do some serious damage, but even they won't chase you far. So these undead supernatural levels just turn into sprinting around the map, praying you stumble on the right path, then giving up and watching a guide because you feel like you're wasting time. I love stealth games because of the tension and constant pressure to make the right move. So when several levels just disregard this with brain dead zombies, I start to lose interest. All of this on top of the fact that it's an old game, meaning it's playing at a big disadvantage from the start. I understand there's a bunch of mods and fixes for known issues, but personally, I'm not going to jump through a ton of hoops just to boot up a game that I'm really not that into in the first place. That might make me lazy or whatever else, but I'm not going to waste my time learning how to make a game run properly when I could just play a game that already runs properly. Seriously, how the hell do I lose all cutscenes? Because of this, I have no connection to the story, which completely breaks the immersion and makes every little issue pile up more and more. Thief has good bones, and I can certainly tell why it's considered a classic and pioneer of the genre. I wouldn't dare to disrespect those claims. However, it's old, and it's buggy, and it's frustrating to play. Which really sucks because the first couple levels were so intriguing. But then I'm running around the haunted cathedral map just clueless, and everything looks the same with irrelevant zombies scattered all over. So, after no success for a while, I watch a guide to help me find my bearings, and next thing I know, I'm trying to open the Keeper's Grotto door, which is activated by 2 pressure plates. I see it work successfully for several people, but it seems it's soft-locked my game as the door won't open, doing the exact same thing as the others I watched. The pressure plates just don't seem to activate. Again, it seems like there's ways to fix this, but I'm not putting in all the work, regardless of how easy it may seem for others. I could spend an hour doing research and downloading things just for it to fail and have to keep going. I'm not that guy. I'm not doing it. Instead, I'm going to cut my losses with Thief Gold, look up a video talking about the story or showing all the cutscenes, and then proceed to Thief 2 The Metal Age while hoping for the best.